ballots. Yeah, and it changes from year to year because there may be somebody who is a voter this year that if they pass on, or some guys once you haven't covered baseball in 10 years, you no longer have a vote. So you have to be within 10 years. That was one of the reasons why they thought some of those guys that were going to be dropping off in the last year of Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens being on the ballot, well, some of these guys are going to automatically go off because they haven't covered the game in the last 10 years, in the last decade. And so those are the guys that they felt like were not voting for Bonds and Clemens.
Right.
And so now if those guys fall off, now they pick up the votes that they needed to get in, but it didn't happen.
Right.
But it didn't happen.
So saying that, right now, so we'll get back with those now. Alex Rodriguez had almost 35%, and he is in his third year, so he's got several years. I know Clemens and Bonds had theirs expired, and we will go to that. Now, Billy Wagner had roughly 74%, and he's in his ninth year, and it used to go 15 years that you were on the ballot, and now it drops to 10 years on the ballot.
Right, it's 10 years, and then Billy Wagner missed by 5 votes. He missed by 5 votes. If Billy Wagner's not a Hall of Famer, then I fundamentally have a problem with that. He was one of the most dominant closers of his era, save Trevor Hoffman and Mariano Rivera.
Right.
Right. He was on championship caliber teams.
Yep.
He still had more baseball left in him when he retired. Okay. And he was who he was his entire career, dominant. When you look at his number of strikeouts per inning, they're at Hall of Fame numbers. And but they've always been slow to put, besides Rivera and Hoffman, they've been slow to put relievers in the Hall of Fame. And basically saying that your job is not Hall of Fame worthy because you don't play every day. Well, neither does a starting pitcher.
Right.
Right. But they also, because of how the position has transitioned, where guys are one-inning guys or whatever, they just don't look at those guys the same way. But Billy Wagner, you could count it when he came in to close the game was closed.
Right.
I mean, sub 3 ERA for the majority of his career. I mean, just a phenomenal performer, and I don't get it. And so I don't know. Hopefully next year he picks up those other 5 votes
right.
That he needs to get in. But what a shame for him to have to be on the ballot the entire time. Gary Sheffield's a Hall of Famer in my book.
Right.
Right.
I think he was a great player.
Yeah.
Then he went to
run producer, and he hit everywhere he played. He hit in San Diego. Some people knock him because he played multiple positions. He didn't play one position his whole career. He came up as a shortstop,
right.
moved over to third, wind up playing out in the outfield later in his career, and then also a DH. But when you talk about the essence of run producer, what you could count on was Gary Sheffield being somewhere about 300, hitting 30 home runs, driving in 100 RBIs.
Right.
I mean, it was automatic, right? And so, but I know he's associated with PEDs.
Yep.
Well, there's other guys that are already in that are associated with it. It's just for me how they've decided that certain guys weren't going to get in and other guys that were part of that era. When, for me, you vote on the Baseball Hall of Fame, you're voting them against their era. Were they the dominant players of their era? The whole era is tainted. We know this. Right, but what we don't know is when somebody was on the stuff, when they weren't on the juice, and then how much farther does being on the juice make a ball go?
Right.
Right. We don't know. We don't have data to support that, to back that up. Well, as I've said to some other people, everything before 1947, before Jackie, for me is tainted. Because not all the best players were getting an opportunity to play.
Right.
So it's about eras, right? You had the pre-Ruth era. Ruth comes in and creates another era. That's the home run. Then you have the dominance of the Yankees in the 30s and the 40s. Jackie comes in 47. We've got a whole new influx of ball player that comes in post-World War II.
Yep.
That's an era. The 60s was an era with the high mound. They lower the mound after 68. We usher into another hitters area. We also get the big ballparks, the cookie cutter ballparks that were dual sport for football and baseball. So there's a whole nother era, right? The stolen
Right.
base is in. Everything changes, right? And then all of a sudden we get to the 90s, we start to make smaller parks again, and we get into the PED era, and now we're in another era, right? We're in the era now where the balls, are flying, and-
They're on steroids.
right. so everything. So to me, you compare them to their era, and then you may go historically. Where do they line up historically
Right.
with other similar Hall of Famers? But there's only been a few quantifiers that we know for sure. If you got 3,000 hits, you're getting in,
Right.
right? Unless you're Pete Rose, right? If you get 500 home runs, you're getting in. Unless you're Palmeiro, Bonds, McGuire, and a
Right.
couple other guys,
Right.
Right. If you got 300 wins, unless your name is Clemens,
Right.
you're getting in. Which now that's going to get lowered to about 225 wins probably.
Right, because they're the way that they pitch the way they treat pitchers, they treat them with kid gloves. Where like I keep reading stats left and right over and over how like Nolan Ryan could at 44 years old could still throw 152 pitches in a game, and up until his last start where he blew his elbow, he was very strong and never got hurt. Saying that, do you think that Bonds and Clemens and McGuire are should be in the Hall of Fame? And if you do or if you don't believe it, why?
Well, I believe that they all should be in the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds, because let's look at two careers, right?
Mhm.
You could basically do him pre 1998,
Mm-hmm.
and then you could do post 1998.
Right.
Both of his careers are Hall of Fame careers,
Mhm.
right? He put up the astronomical numbers post 98,
Right.
but up until 98, he becomes in 1998 the first and only guy to have 400 home runs and 400 stolen base. That's a league of your own, right? No pun intended for the movie, right?
Right.
That's a Hall of Famer, right? He at that time he also had 7 of his 8 Gold Gloves and 3 of his to become 7 MVPs.
Right.
Anybody that's won 3 MVPs is in the Hall of Fame.
Yep. They are.
So for me, it's case closed at 1998. You can strip away all the rest of Barry Bonds' numbers after 1998, and for me, he's still a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Roger Clemens, right? Roger Clemens had to go and reinvent himself after he left Boston. He goes to Toronto. He starts throwing a split finger fastball, and all of a sudden, he's a 20-game winner again, right? He's got 7 Cy Youngs.
Yep.
He's got 7 Cy Youngs, more than anybody else. So for me, that's in the Hall of Fame. He was a dominant pitcher. He set records like striking out 20 in a game. All of those things say Roger Clemens was a Hall of Famer prior to what somebody may say is, okay, well, he has been linked to PEDs. Okay. My other thing is, do you have a failed test?
Right.
Other than that, it's like they say in the court of law, it's all circumstantial evidence. Well, Bonds weighed more than he didn't. Okay. He can't just go in the weight room and lift,
Right. Yeah.
right? His hat size wasn't the same. Mine isn't either.
No.
My hat size, I wore a 7 1/8 when I was in high school. I wear a 7 and about 5/8 now.
Yep.
Yeah. And I lost hair.
Yeah.
So my head's bigger, right? I don't wear the same shoe size that I wore in high school, right? My feet are
Shirt
bigger.
size, pant size,
Right.
everything.
Nobody comes into the league looking the same way that they did when they leave the league,
Mhm.
right? So it's all circumstantial evidence. There was no testing,
Right.
and the commissioner who was over the league at that time is in the Hall of Fame. So
I still can't
So
believe.
so the very guy who turned a blind eye to what was going on is in the Hall of Fame,
Right.
And there's some other guys who I won't name, who I can tell you that they were doing something, okay?
Right.
And then Andro, what Mark McGuire was taking and was visible in his locker when they first saw it, you could go to any GNC at that time and get it over the counter. It wasn't even under a lock. You could still get it today. The difference is now it's under. It's like a street legal,
Right.
right? You know how guys used to drag race. Well, he's
Right.
got a street legal motor under there, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's more than factory,
Yeah.
okay, but it's legal.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. I've always thought that steroids or PED or whatever it is, it helped you recover faster.
That's correct.
I will get that. Okay, but saying that, it doesn't make you hit a ball better. It doesn't make you throw a football better. It doesn't make you tackle better. I could do steroids. I could bulk up to 250 and rock solid, but it doesn't mean I'm going to hit a ball. I probably could hit it still barely 150 feet.
It's got nothing to do with hand-eye coordination. Right?
Exactly.
And then here's the thing that I'll always say about Bonds. Bonds would get 3 intentional walks a night, get 1 pitch to hit, and don't miss it.
Right.
That's a level of concentration
Mhm.
that most people do not have.
Right.
Right. So, so those guys, McGuire would be the guy that I would challenge a little bit, because what you have to ask yourself is, what is McGuire without the home runs?
Right.
Okay, he's a pretty good player. But what I tell people, you do remember as a rookie, he hit 49 home runs. He came into the league hitting home runs.
And I think that's still a record. Am I not correct?
For a rookie,
Yeah.
So, but then I'll tell them, I said, now, as a person who has developed kids' swings and athletes' swings, I can show you also the change in McGuire's swing from when he started with the A's to when he got to St. Louis, or just as he was leaving Oakland, right? And how he released the bat very differently, how his bat path was very different. And so now he became a better hitter because he had bottomed out at hitting about 201,
Right.
okay? And in 91, he had bottomed out, and he had to redo his swing, right? Well, this also coincides with the time where he starts to take lifting a lot serious, right?
Mhm.
And Mark McGuire was a big individual when he came into the league. He
Yes,
just
he
wasn't
was.
as put together as he became Paul Bunyan, right?
Right.
And so, again, but Bonds was a guy who he was a 5-tool player, if they would say. The one argument is that he had an average arm. He didn't have an above-average arm. But he could steal a base whenever he needed to steal a base. He was a Gold Glove left fielder.
Yep.
He could hit. He could hit with power. He could run the base as well. He was a complete baseball player. He's as complete as they come,
Right.
right? And also is the guy who leads the major league all time in walks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so this is a complete baseball player. Roger Clemens was a complete pitcher, right?
Yep.
He could throw the fastball by you late in his career. He had to develop some other pitches to continue striking out at the level that he struck out. I mean, only Randy Johnson and Nolan Ryan have more, really, and I think Cy Young have more strikeouts than he does.
Right.
It's incredible, right? So, and he did it for a long period of time. He wasn't a guy hanging on at the end, just
Nope.
trying to accumulate some numbers. He was still a dominant pitcher. And think about part of his career, the last part of it, he took half the season off.
Yeah, he would only play at home
Yeah.
at Houston because his boys were growing up, and
Yeah.
so he wanted to watch them.
He cut a deal that was favorable.
Yeah.
Right, to him. So that's a whole lot more opportunities to get wins that he didn't pursue.
Right.
Right. So I think those are the guys for me that I think all of them are Hall of Famers, but I'll stick my neck out as more for Bonds and Clemens. And then for me, you cannot tell the story of baseball, which is what the Hall of Fame is supposed to do, without having Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame.
So, but unfortunately, they have that one rule where it is in black and white, no gambling, and he did that.
Okay. So, did he do it?
Well,
as a
he
player?
allegedly did that.
Right. No, he's admitted it.
Right.
He's admitted. But you're not voting him in as a manager.
Right.
You're voting him in as a player who played the game the right way.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie Hustle.
Absolutely.
He's got more hits than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can. The only reason he's not on the ballot is because he has a lifetime ban from baseball.
Right.
And as long as he has the ban, they can't vote for him. So he's never been on the ballot.
Right.
I don't care. Y'all could keep the lifetime ban on him for all I care. But the guy who's got more hits than anybody else. Think about this. If you got 200 hits
Mm-hmm.
for 20 straight years,
Mm-hmm.
you'd still be behind Pete Rose.
Yeah, by almost 150.
256
200,
hits.
yeah, 256. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ty Cobb is at, what,
41.91.
41.91. Yeah, okay.
So think about that.
Yep.
20 straight years of 200 hits, and I'm still trailing you.
And no player is going to
The one player that had a chance didn't get here till age 27.
and that was Suzuki.
Yes.
Yeah, Ichiro.
Because the fact that he still got 3,000 hits is amazing.
Right. Yep.
Right? And he didn't get here till age 27.
Yep.
So that's really, really impressive. And you go out and look at some of the numbers of hits of years that he put up. It was just incredible that he was able to accomplish that in a short period of time.
Okay, saying that, next year's ballot, not talking about the guys that already been talked about, CC Sabathia,
Hall of Famer.
Suzuki, Ian Kinsler,
No.
Dustin Pedroia,
No.
Felix Hernandez,
No.
Curtis Granderson,
No.
Troy Tulowitzki,
No.
Ben Zobrist,
No.
Russell Martin,
No.
Hanley Ramirez,
Nope.
Adam Jones,
Nope.
and Brian McCann.
Nope.
Now, the ones that we had not talked about that are returning, you had Billy Wagner, we talked about him. Andrew Jones,
Yes.
Carlos Beltran,
Yes.
Chase Utley,
No.
Manny Ramirez.
I would vote for Manny, but I know he's one of the ones that, for me, if you were going to exclude somebody, he has a failed test. If you wanted to make an argument. But as a hitter, Manny Ramirez is a Hall of Fame hitter.
Alex Rodriguez.
Yes.
Let's see. Omar Vizquel.
I'm on the fence with Omar.
And why is that?
I think he was an accumulator, but defensively, man, he was good. If you could put Phil Rizzuto and Scooter and some of them other guys from the Yankees, because the Yankees won all those World Series, then you could put Omar in. The only person of the modern era that I thought was a better shortstop than him was Ozzie Smith.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yep.
And the
Ozzie
argument,
Smith
and
was
the argument is, as hitters, they were about the same. Ozzie slightly better.
right. Let's see. Bobby Abreu.
I one time thought that was just how's he even? But you go back and you look at Bobby Abreu's numbers, you're like, wow, he put up some pretty good numbers. But for me, he's a no.
Gotcha. Jimmy Rollins.
Man,
And I wouldn't vote for him only for the fact that the Royals have had one record that you could post, and he beat it. He beat Willie Wilson's 705 plate appearances.
Right. Again, he's another one for me. He's a Hall of Very Good. He was not his prime years was not long enough.
Gotcha.
Right.
Andy Pettit.
I think I would not vote for Andy Pettit, and I like Andy Pettit a lot, but I'm gonna say no.
Mark Burley.
No.
Francisco Rodriguez.
No.
Torrey Hunter.
No.
And David Wright.
All Hall of Very Good. All-star caliber players.
And I totally agree with that.
Everybody can't get in.
No, you can't. And that's the problem also, because then they go, well, we need to put him in. Why do you need to put him in?
Because then you wind up comparing them to other Hall of Famers that probably shouldn't have been in, and then that's where the debate starts, right?
Right, but
you got all
but
these
as you
guys
talk
from the Yankees of the 40s and the 50s that are in because the Yankees won all the championships.
right, but at the same time, they're also in different generations. So,
Absolutely.
you said Babe Ruth in the 20s and 30s, and then the dead ball era that was before that. You
Yes.
can't compare all those.
Right.
because Ty Cobb was a great hitter. Would he have been a great hitter against Satchel Paige, pitchers like them? And you keep going up, and then you have the 40s and 50s, you had the 60s, and then you had the 70s, and all those generations have changed. You've got players now that will never pitch like Roger Clemens and Nolan Ryan and Randy Johnson,
Right.
that will pitch 120, 150 pitches. That's almost abusive to the person.
Right now there's a big deal if you get a guy that goes out and throws 200 innings, whereas those guys used to throw 300 innings in a year.
Right.
So, and I'm not asking for that, but I'm just saying it's a different game. It's a different era, and so where 300 wins was the automatic, it may be 200 wins now.
Yeah.
Or 225.
Right.
Somewhere like that.
So see, how difficult is that to compare a player, let's just say me, that pitched average 200 innings, and I had decent numbers, but you try to compare me with Nolan Ryan. You can't do that.
Yeah, it's hard to do that. The strike zone has changed. There's so much more when you deal with research and development, aka analytics. There's just a lot. But when they start voting, they start pulling out all these advanced analytic numbers and compare them to other Hall of Famers instead of really comparing them to the era.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you may compare him to if you compare any outfielder to Hank Aaron, then all of a sudden he ain't a Hall of Famer no more. Right?
That's totally wrong.
Right. So you have to compare them. I always ask this question: was this person the best at their position during their era at any time?
Right.
At any time, or at least in the top 3 at their position at any time in their career, and then what were their peak years like? Right. What were their years from age 25 to about 32 like? Because that's where you should have your peak performance.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we are running late. So I was thinking we're just going to skip the break because we still got a lot to talk about, and because we got to talk about the Royals. The Royals have been still wheeling and dealing. They picked up a utility infielder, and then they traded an outfielder that had been in the organization for a bit.
Yeah, so obviously the Royals get an opportunity to make a deal or sign free agent Adam Frazier. Adam Frazier has been in the league, for a long time.
Yep.
He brings us what we were looking for, is somebody who has some flexibility, looking for a left-handed hitting utility guy who could play multiple positions, but also could compete for the second base position, where we are not sold that Michael Massey has to go out there and play every day, right? And so he's still going to get an opportunity to go out there and do that, but it's not ingrained in stone. And so I think there's an opportunity to bring in a veteran. Frazier has also been around World Series teams, and what you want to do now with the Royals is infuse some veteran leadership with some guys who have played in high-stakes, high-pressure moments, and allow them to have influence over this young team that we put out on the field. And so you look at him. We also traded Samad Taylor, who was a guy that bounced up and down, made his major league debut last year, but he brought value because of the speed that he had. He was one of our faster guys in the organization, but he had come to us via a trade. So he's going over to the Mariners for cash considerations. We signed Sandy Leon, a veteran catcher. He's going to be on a minor league deal, but he'll be a guy that will be in big league camp. So there's been a lot of activity this off season, and so those are going to be some things that we get a chance to look at and say, man, when you look at what the Royals have done, nobody can say that we've sat pat, that we've had an opportunity to go out and be aggressive, not only in the free agent market, but in just trying to give ourselves a chance to put a little bit different team out there next year that will be one that'll have a blend of youth and hopefully veteran leadership, and especially trying to shore up the pitching staff both on the front end and the back end in the bullpen.
Absolutely. So, saying that, how many more moves do you think Royals are looking to make or going to make?
Well, I think if there's a fit out there, I don't think that we will turn down a fit, right? At the end of the day, you got to look at your roster, at your 26-man roster, and then you also got to look at your 40-man roster and say who's the weakest link, in that chain. And if I can find somebody who can make that better, then why would I not exercise that opportunity, either free agency or via trade, right? Hopefully we've got people that other teams want or covet and say, okay, well, what's the deal? I don't think we're done by any stretch of the imagination. I won't think we're done until opening day, right? And then still even through the season, because of where we've been over the last 3 years of 100-plus losses and then all the way back to really not being competitive since 2016, we've got to be as aggressive as we can to try to find out what is that right mix on the field to give us a chance to go out and be competitive again.
That sounds great. I like that, because I know the fans have been clamoring for another at least winning team since the World Series. And, with this new stadium issue going on, people are like, oh, I don't want to do this based on, how our performance has been. So everything looks good, and I do like that.
It would be probably, I would venture to say, a little bit different if not the Royals' success right now is not very good, and the Chiefs is off the chart, right?
Right.
6 straight AFC Championship games. And so people are saying, well, if anybody needs a new ballpark, it's the Chiefs.
Right.
Not the Royals.
Yep.
People are voting based on success, not based on necessarily needs.
Right.
Or what is the long-term goal of the city.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and ironically, when the Royals were playing in the World Series in 14 and 15, and Andy Reid had just started, he had Alex Smith as a quarterback, we were going, when is the Chiefs going to start performing? When is the Chiefs going to start winning? We have the Royals going, and just how ironic that has turned around. And speaking of that, we've got the Super Bowl. We got Super Bowl Derek Thomas next Sunday.
Why can't it be Super Bowl Darwin Penny?
Was you 50? Oh, you're not 58 yet.
I'll be 58 though.
Hey, I will actually be 58 2 days before the Super Bowl.
Okay.
So maybe it should be Super Bowl Awesome Boys.
All right. So no, I certainly get that. Certainly with the life, the legacy of the great Derek Thomas, and what 58 means to the city of Kansas City. So,
Yep.
How fitting
Yep.
for the Chiefs to be able to go to Super Bowl 58.
Yep, absolutely. And so just showing, we've got our shirts, and it says always bet on red. Now, I got these T-shirts at the Bunker, which is at 4056 Broadway. So if you like these shirts, now DJ Scatter is wearing the red one, so you can wear it in red or you can wear it in black. So we've got them in black, and DJ Scatter has got it in red. And if you're very interested in getting one, go get one because they are awesome. Ah, there he is. Oh, he's trying to take a picture of himself. He's trying to take a selfie while we're trying to do our show. There he is. See, you see it in red. That looks so cool. So, but we've got the black one, so they're much better. I like the black one. So,
Right.
so anyway, we've got the Super Bowl coming up. We're playing San Francisco, so it's funny how it says always bet on red, but yet San Francisco is also red. But saying this, you've got a quarterback who has been there been at a conference championship 6 straight years. He has gone to 4 Super Bowls. Only 2 other quarterbacks has led their teams to 4 Super Bowls in 5 years, and that's Tom Brady and that's Jim Kelly. And one was the GOAT and one was the GOAT, but in the other fashion.
Right.
And they're going up against Mr. Irrelevant. And to be honest, I thought for a half that he was just totally going to blow it. And Detroit was playing well. I think Dan Johnson got too aggressive, or Campbell. I said Dan Johnson. I have a classmate named Dan Johnson. That's why. Dan Campbell, he was getting too aggressive and trying to just keep going. And sure, he was doing what got him there, but what got him there got him exit out of the game, and they'll be watching the game just like we will.
Right. Well, I had a friend of mine whose dad used to say the same thing, that make you laugh or make you cry.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so there's a time to be aggressive, and there's a time to take the points.
Right.
Right. Make them have to continually play catch up or have to add an additional score to surpass you. I could almost handle the going for it a little bit. For me, was their decision to get away from the run.
Right.
And they had an outstanding running game going in the first half,
Mm-hmm.
and were dominating the game with the run, and it just didn't make sense to get totally away from that. And I'm not saying that you want. What makes Jared Goff is when you can play action pass with him, right?
Right.
And the running game was setting that up. They ran the ball 21 times in the first half, and ran the ball like 15 times in the second half.
Yeah.
Or less than that, right?
Yep.
So it didn't. They hadn't stopped your run.
No.
So take advantage of that.
Well,
and
isn't
then
that
even all of that one fluke play?
right?
If the defensive back catches the ball, knocks it down, anything but other than let it go off his face mask into Brandon Ayuk's hands, who credit him for staying with the play. It's a totally different game.
Yep.
At that point, momentum was shifting.
Right.
Right. And so it just became a challenge to see Detroit kind of implode a little bit. But at the end of the day, who was the best team in the NFC all year?
San Francisco.
So they're supposed to be in the game.
Right.
They're supposed to be in the game. Detroit, you had your chance.
Yep.
Okay. And you had a big lead early, and you got to close those games out. But if we're being honest, San Francisco was the best team in the NFC all year.
Oh, and there's absolutely no doubt about it.
Right.
But unlike the AFC, Baltimore had been pretty much dominating all year long. They got it by running the ball. They ran for 229 yards against Houston, and yet rushes the ball 16 times. And I believe it was like seven rushes were running backs, and there were actually three or four called rushing plays. Mm-hmm. So Baltimore did absolutely the opposite of what got them there. So is that Baltimore's doing, or was that Kansas City's defense actually performing so well that what made them do that?
I don't want to take anything away from the Chiefs' defense, because the Chiefs' defense has really, really played well all year. But if Baltimore runs the ball 30 times
mm-hmm.
and you stop them, okay.
Right.
Because they had averaged 32 rushes a game over the entirety of the season,
mm-hmm.
right? And so to make no commitment to the run is where I put more on Baltimore than I do on Kansas City. There was no commitment to it. Lamar is not a 40-time-a-game passer. That's not who he is. If your defense goes out and holds Patrick Mahomes to 17 points,
yep.
they've done a good job.
Yeah.
And you won't stay true to who you are offensively. There were times, even when Lamar was in the pocket, that he, in my opinion, could have just take off running.
Right.
Like Brock Purdy did in the 49ers
yep.
Detroit game.
Absolutely.
Okay, my second reason out there, I'm going. Lamar stayed in the pocket. He patted the ball. And then they turned the ball over.
Yep.
Right? Great play at the goal line by Kansas City,
yep.
knocking the ball out.
Yep.
Okay? That's an unbelievable play. But it comes from a guy who's already gotten you 15 yards for his lack of discipline. They had, in another drive that Kansas City scored, they had multiple 15-yard penalties, late hit on Mahomes, shot to the head. Just those type of things. Like, if you go out and you play your A game and you get beat, then you take your hat off and you move on. But I don't think anybody thought, whether you are a Chiefs fan or not, that Baltimore played their best game when they had, on average, beaten playoff teams this year by at least 2 touchdowns.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So they had been the best team. But
there's actually been only 2 other teams in the history of the NFL outside of Baltimore that had won more games against winning records than Baltimore, and I believe that was the Patriots in 2007, 2008, and the Plattsburgh Maroons in 1925. All I'm saying is, you usually try to go with what got you there.
Yeah.
What's the old saying? As a coach, you would say, "I'm going to keep running this, or I'm going to keep doing this play until you stop me."
Right. I'm gonna ride the horse that brought me.
Yeah.
Right.
And they stopped doing that.
But it was even just the commitment to try. Sometimes your running game is just through commitment of, okay, they stopping us, we're getting minimal games, and then boom. But they had some success with Gus Edwards in the first. The guy touched the ball one time in the second half on a rush.
Right.
And so, again, I don't want to take anything away from the great job that the Chiefs defense did. The Chiefs blitzed Lamar, and they came at him. But how do you get people out of blitz? Run that ball, trap them.
Yep, absolutely.
And so there was an opportunity, but it reminded us again of how great Patrick Mahomes is, how the Chiefs defense has evolved from where it was when the Chiefs went to the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 54. Very, very different team.
Yep.
And what you're seeing. And then all of a sudden, who knew MVS would finally catch a ball?
Yep.
Who knew?
And he had the 3 biggest catches in the 2 weeks. And and I posted on Facebook, MVS is forgiven. Now, he may become the GOAT this coming up week in the bad way, and people will hate him again. But he finally did what he did. And I was listening to Peter King today, and he was asking Tom Brady a question in the Houston or the Super Bowl, which was, I believe, 51, where they were down 28-3, and they came back and beat Atlanta. And the 2 guys was one guy McDonald or something, but the other one was Chris Hogan. One was it was Mitchell, and he was a rookie, and Chris Hogan was just a guy that they picked up off the street. And so he asked Tom Brady, "Why are you throwing it to these guys? That why did you trust them?" And Tom Brady said, "I have practiced with them for 6 months. We have practiced every day. We've had over 1,000 practices. I know that if they're going to go 15 yards, they're going to take the step and go 13 yards, and I'm going to throw it to them. I know I'm going to do that because I have faith in them." Well, Patrick Mahomes did the exact same thing. He trusted Justin Watson. He trusted MVS, even though all of us didn't. It was kind of similar with Mark Donovan, and I'll say that in a moment. But, they practice every day. We only get assumptions, and we see certain things. It's kind of like seeing a trailer of a movie, and you think what's the movie all about. You don't. You just see this. This is what's going to happen. Well, they practice this every day, every single day. They practice over and over and over. And so Monday, I went to the Mitch Holthus show, and so they had Mark Donovan, the president, who's the only guy above him is Clark Hunt, And so afterwards, I shook his hand and I asked him the question. I said, how hard is it to get emotional when you have a player that's being disruptive? And I said, and I don't really want to mention names, but I mentioned Tony. And he says it's very difficult. But he immediately said, I have more information on these players than anybody else can even think about. So like we do a show, I have, I'm very good at my stats and stuff. But my stats are nothing compared to what Mark Donovan had. And he mentioned that, there was something about Tony and that he didn't really elaborate, but he knows all about him. That's why a lot of times when we go, get rid of him, get rid of MVS, he's horrible. That's why they don't get rid of him, because they have the more information than us fans.
Fans live in emotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say get rid of a player. What I always say is you might have to reduce that player's reps,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody else may get more reps.
Right.
In a situation like that, unless there are a problem in the locker room, then for me, okay,
Right.
it's time for somebody,
Right.
somebody to go, or they have become a nuisance in the community, and are doing things that they shouldn't be doing in the community. But at the end of the day, okay, they're professional athletes, and we're not,
Right.
right? And the best thing that happened through all of what was transpiring with the offense throughout the year is that Patrick Mahomes' leadership was that he didn't throw those guys under the bus, right? Because I know I'm going to eventually need that guy, right?
Yep.
And that's what I used to tell my coaches when I was a high school coach. Don't chew that kid up right now. We're going to need that kid. The game is not over. It's
Right.
not time to chew him up and get him further. When you drop the ball out there, you know it. Nobody has to tell you. You
Right.
dropped the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Duh. Yeah.
Right.
I know, right? And you're already feeling bad. You don't want to let your teammates down. Nobody goes out there trying to drop balls. Nobody goes out there trying to miss kicks.
Right.
Okay? But they happen. And so how am I going to keep you engaged so that if we got to come back to you, because I've got to make the right play. The right play was for Mahomes to say, that's open. I got to throw it to him.
Right.
Not, well, he's dropped balls in the past, so I'm not going to throw it to him. I'm going to force it in somewhere else. No, that's not the right play. The right play is, this is the guy, I got to get that, right? That trust is built up, right? There was a reason why Michael Jordan was able to pass the ball to John Paxson,
Right.
Or to a Steve Kerr, that, okay, everybody's on me. You're going to knock that shot down because you're going to be open.
Right.
Because at some point in time, he saw him knock that shot down in practice.
Right.
So
Yep.
it is what it is.
It is. And we are getting near the end of Any Given Sunday on KUAW. And we still have the best segment of our show, Penny for Your Thoughts.
Today, our Penny for Your Thoughts goes out to the people at League 42 down in Wichita. It is part of an inner city RBI program designed to develop baseball in the urban core. And then, unfortunately, this week there were people who decided that they would take the statue of Jackie Robinson, which is the showpiece of going into that Little League stadium down there. Not only did they remove it from the site, but they dismantled and they trashed it and they tore it up. I doubt that those people who did that listened to our show. But if they were listening to our show, I would say to them, shame on you. Shame on you. Every time we try to have something of value, something of significance, something that gives these kids a sense of pride, something that gives them an opportunity to explore who they are and become the individuals that they are, why would you go and destroy this piece of history? Jackie Robinson and what he meant not only to the game of baseball, but what he meant to the United States as a whole. Yesterday was Jackie's birthday.
Yep.
And so for people to have to do premeditated things to keep our youth from having an opportunity to grow in a game, to have a place that they call this is our beautiful park, and to deface that property. That is just unbelievable that our society has developed people that would want to do things like that. It has nothing to do with you. Why would you destroy that property? But the good news is that Major League Baseball is going to replace the statue, and they're going to continue to donate and support money towards League 42 down in Wichita. I have a very dear friend who sits on the board of directors for League 42 and became acquainted with them a few years back and what they're trying to do, and similar to what we were doing down here in Kansas City in 18th and Vine at the Kansas City MLB Urban Youth Academy. But my hat will still go off to the people, the volunteers, the families who continue to persevere and continue to grow up young men and women through baseball and softball through League 42, right? Let's protect our areas, and when you see something like that happening, please call the authorities and do something about it.
Well said. And I do know, I've heard that they do have video of those people that did that. And to me, that is completely classless, and it just totally infuriates me. Now, real quick,
Okay.
are they going to take the shoes and bring them back to the museum up here? Because I've heard something like that would be an idea for them to bring the shoes up here and just put a brand new statue there.
On there. I don't know. Maybe that's something that they could do as the Negro Leagues Museum expands to its new 30,000 square foot campus that will be located right next to the Paseo YMCA, and I think that would be something that they probably could put on display and somehow pay homage to Jackie and his legacy here in Kansas City, because you got to remember, before he was a Brooklyn Dodger, he was a Kansas City Monarch.
Absolutely. And is there something going on at the museum?
Yes, this month, and celebrating Black History Month, the Kansas City Royals will pay an admission for anybody to go to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. It is absolutely free for the entire month of February, courtesy of the Kansas City Royals and their partnership with the museum. So if you have not had an opportunity to go to the museum at all, or maybe you haven't gone to the museum lately, this would be a great month to take advantage of the free admission, to go down, take your kids down, take your grandkids down, take your neighbor, and go and see a bit of Americana, a bit of American history through the story and the narrative that is told by the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum.
And you may have an opportunity to have Bob Kendrick tour you around.
Absolutely. If you get lucky, you'll get a chance to see one of the great storytellers of our generation.
Absolutely. And we may have him on the show within the next week or two. So definitely watch out. Watch us and go to the museum, because I intend on taking my grandkids and children down there. And so with that, we are finished for the evening. Next week, we will talk more about the Super Bowl and the Chiefs and 49ers. We didn't do much about it because they're not playing this week, and the Pro Bowl, as they call it, is a sham. So we were not even going to mention that. But we will discuss it next week. And with that, I am Brian Kress, the Awesome Voice, with Coach 24 Darwin Penny and DJ Scatter George Walker. Be awesome, not angry, and you guys have yourself a phenomenal Black History Month weekend.